Before we get started, there are 2 sign-up sheets on each of the podiums. Doesn't matter which podium you use. If you would sign your name, put your address so we can have an accurate record for the, since this is a public hearing. Anybody that hasn't signed up that wishes to speak, you don't have to speak if you signed up. But if you want to speak, then if you'll sign up, I'll gather those up in just a minute. And then, okay?
I'll pass it around.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yep.
Is everybody ready?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to call the public hearing to order. It's Monday, November 26, 2018, and the time is 9:01. Everybody can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we have the public hearing before the special meeting. Steve, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Henry.
Here.
Ms. Reagan.
Present.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Brooke.
Here.
John, would you like to go over the rules?
Yes, yes. This is a public hearing for the consideration of an ordinance for a lease to execution of a proposed build, operate, transfer lease agreement. All persons requested to speak in the meeting shall be required to sign the speaker registration sheet and be called in the order in which they have signed the sheet. There's no obligation to speak if someone has signed the speaker registration sheet and may waive their opportunity to speak. Once that opportunity has been waived, the person may not make further comments. Written comments will be accepted in lieu of speaking and may be provided to commissioners no later than Friday, November 30th at 4 p.m. Written comments shall be delivered to the commissioner's office, the office next door, or sent electronically to jhoneycutt, HONEYCUTT, @co.delaware.in.us. The commissioners will allow a presentation for the developer to explain the project and any other information that they deem important for the commissioners to consider. The commissioners will then call upon the speakers in the order in which they sign the speaker sign-in sheet. Each speaker must clearly state their name, whether they are Delaware County resident, which side of the issue they will discuss. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No repeat speaker will be permitted unless everyone has had an opportunity to speak one time and there remains time for the issue on the repeat. If there's a spokesman for the side opposing the position, then the spokesperson will be granted a total of 10 minutes, although I don't know that anybody has identified themselves as a spokesperson. Comments which are duplicative or repetitive shall be deemed out of order by the commissioners, and the speaker will be asked to stop. Any speaker that is not courteous, argumentative, accusatory, or insulting will be deemed out of order and asked to stop. Any speaker deemed out of order for any reason will not be granted an opportunity to make any further presentation. All documents provided to the commissioners for their review at the meeting shall have a copy for each commissioner and one for the record.
Thank you. We'll start off, we have RQAW here to do the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Pete Peterson. I am with RQAW. I'm also representing the Delaware County Justice Partners in this public hearing. With me today is Eric Weflin, our Director of Architecture from RQAW. Wanted to take a moment to kind of reacquaint everybody with the process that we've gone through on this project with the Commissioners. We were engaged a number of months ago, probably over a year ago, to start to take a look at the process of looking at the current jail situation and what options the county may have as it relates to solving those issues. We had an in-depth look at the current jail facility. We looked at an additional building that they asked us to look at. We looked at a greenfield site, And then we were also asked to look at the ASINs, or former Wilson School Building, which is the diagram you see up here. Through those investigations, and which took probably anywhere close to 5-6 months, I think, Eric, is what we did on the study, to take a look at all the circumstances revolving around the current situation at the jail and all those sites that are there. We came up with probably the most viable solution for the county, and they wanted to move the entire Justice Center out to one location, was this Wilson School Building. When we began this process, we took a look at the square footages that each one of the departments had here in the county, including all the jails, and we determined that the Wilson School ASINs building was large enough to fit all those departments in here, along with room for growth. This depiction that you see up here was the original schematic or design if we had during the RFP process. So this is where we started, once we got through all the studies and determined that this was the best site, along with the cost that went along with that. And this is the original design. So we determined that everything could fit within that Wilson School by adding an extra pod and delivering approximately 500-bed jail facility to the county. We estimated that cost at around $45 million, and then we came up with a new design off of that to kind of hone in on where we're at today. I did want to point out a couple things before we got into the design portion where we're at today. In national averages for construction cost increases are running about 0.5% per month. Indiana is actually running a little bit higher than that. So these estimates, which were given back almost 6 months ago, obviously would have an inflation category here. But I think when you'll see when we get down to the current design where we're at today, and I'm going to let Eric detail that with you, and all the work that his department has done, along with all the other engineers that we've had through that building, and then we can answer any other questions you folks may have at that point in time. And Eric, if you flip that, I'll give the mic over to you. And I can
This
stand
is
right
the second floor diagram that was done back a little bit over a year ago. It kind of shows the difference.
Speak up, Eric.
Yeah, you need to come over here.
I'll come over
Yeah,
here.
you come over there, I'll get these. I may have to do that.
Stand right in front of you. So what you see here is a floor plan that depicts all of the different functions that will operate at the new facility. There are a lot of opportunities that this building provided. First and foremost is one centralized common entrance to the facility. What that allows the county to do is centralize security to the facility. So public entrance is through this area, and then there's one common corridor that connects all of the courts at both ends. So the public really is kind of located along this end. We've got an opportunity for clerk space here, centralized between all the courts. You can see the light gray area. That allows for secure circulation for both inmates coming from the jail portion of the facility, but also for staff at this end so that they can move between all of the courts and the clerk space. Again, one centralized entrance allows circulation back to the sheriff's office. After hours, there would be an entrance here for the sheriff's office and the jail as well. Starting at this end of the building, which is where really the jail functions are going to be, we have a sally port with secure entrance and then intake and booking. There's a lot of new housing, and you can see that that's divided up into a lot of different pie pieces in these areas. And what that allows for is proper classification. So that's very, very important in the operation of a jail for inmate safety. It also provides the opportunity to provide different units. So for instance, different opportunities for programming. So whether that be different type of rehabilitation programs, things like AA and NA are available, educational opportunities. We also provide lots of classroom spaces like this area here. There's some out on this end. That too is really, really important from a rehabilitation process standpoint. We want to make sure that there's lots of opportunities for programming for inmates to participate in. Got a new updated kitchen and laundry. We've got medical dedicated, again, very important for the safety and welfare of the inmates. Recreation is immediately adjacent and available to all of the inmate housing areas. Again, really important for the safety and wellness of the inmates. We've got areas out here, like exam rooms that are immediately adjacent to the housing. So again, safety and wellness of the inmates is immediately adjacent to the areas where they'll be housed and rehabilitated. We've got areas around this, which is an auditorium. So the auditorium is available and is really a good opportunity for the county for things like training. So again, important from a staff safety standpoint. They're gonna have an opportunity to provide lots of training opportunities in there. And then you can see with this kind of reddish color around, there's sheriff's office immediately adjacent to those areas. On the second floor, again, the public will circulate. There's an elevator and stairs here at the front. So the public circulates through this space. And we have all of the different justice components within this building as well. So from an operations standpoint, really operationally efficient for the county. We've got prosecutor's office, we've got 4D court, family support, probation is here. We've got the sheriff's office, and in the blue there's kind of a secured circulation area with jail administration area. There's evidence storage available in there. And then what you see here, again, with all the pie pieces, is the two-story space. So lots of daylight available into those housing areas in both of these. All those little squares that you see right there are skylights that provide a lot of daylight into those spaces. There's elevated control in these two kind of olive green areas. What that means is that from an operations standpoint, the way that this is designed around centralized control, so you have all of the housing here, you've got maximum operational efficiency from a staffing standpoint. So it takes fewer people to operate the facility than an older linear design jail.
Head count here, Eric.
So we've got, we're north of 250 on this side, and we're just under 250 on this side. So the total bed count is 508.
Any circulation behind them? Remember, let's talk about what we've done in the building from an engineering perspective and then how they work on the maintenance.
So one of the things that's important to note is that in an older design or an older style jail, when you come into work in any of the secure areas on things like plumbing or electrical, you have to go into those secure areas. That's not good for the people that need to come in and work. A lot of times it means that you have to lock a facility down. We don't want to do that any more than has to happen. And a design like this has a rear mechanical chase that goes all the way around the perimeter of the building. And what that means is that everything can continue to operate within the secure area of the facility on a day-to-day standpoint without having to lock anyone down, worry about tools being in those areas, and all of that maintenance can occur back here in this chase, kind of behind the scenes, if you will. So from an inmate safety standpoint and from a staff safety standpoint, that's really critical to the operations of the facility. It also means that maintenance is easily done, and maintenance that's easily done gets done. So from a longevity, from an investment standpoint, from a county standpoint, that's really important.
And then go ahead and speak to the fact of what our engineers did on the current building in terms of looking at all the systems, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so one of the things that was really nice was we came in, we've been doing a lot of investigations of that building, and we've gone in and done everything from run cameras down pipes to testing the electrical system, and what we found was that you have a really robust building here, that you've got a building whose systems are well maintained, and that there's a lot of longevity available in those systems. And when we identified things like boilers that were near the end of their useful life, we've accounted for them being replaced. So from an investment standpoint, regarding the systems, we've got a good plan going forward for the county that protects the investment.
And any new systems that are going to be brought up to speed, we've taken a look at the life expectancy of all the systems in the current building, and we're recommending to the commissioners when this project gets underway is that those systems that need to be upgraded are going to be upgraded, and they can be upgraded to the newest standard to make sure the operational efficiency continues to flow, not only from the manpower perspective, but from the utility perspective as well. And then if we can just take a quick look here at the site again, I think from the site perspective, you can see that the county owns a lot of property out there. There's lots of room to do different things if they need to, whether that is meaning put in solar panels or add space or add parking lots or add different things. There's lots of space out on this site to continue to do so because you're not so landlocked.
And again, one of the things that's nice, similar to the building, is that from an operations standpoint, there's an opportunity to kind of have staff and sheriff's vehicular circulation and parking at one end of the building and public at the other end of the building. So, you know, there too is a really good opportunity for the county.
Unless the commissioners have any questions for us, we'll cede this over to our next speaker.
Sherry. On the other side of the tennis courts.
What's our land space on the other side of the tennis court, John?
Let me get to that, hang on a second.
Thank you. That shed.
I know it was on the other side of the tennis court, but the ball diamond and the football field is owned by the Muncie Redevelopment Commission.
I would like to add around the gymnasium, that's a cement wall, that space will also have a maintenance court.
It does.
The same.
Yep.
And I believe you visited the one down at Hamilton Town.
Yeah, I visited, and Councilmember Scott Alexander visited that area too.
All right, Commissioner Riggin, if I could have your question again?
Just how far north of the tennis courts does our property go?
It goes on the other side of,
I thought this one was showing a little bit too much land.
I can't,
Just want to make sure we're accountable.
which one? Oh, this one. It goes, according to the GIS map, it goes just north of this, right here, right along this line.
That line, yeah. So we don't own that field to the north.
Right along this line.
The field to the north is owned by the Muncie Redevelopment.
Right.
Anybody have any questions? John, you wanna
Yep.
go ahead?
Sure. I think the first one is a Stephen Shreve. Okay. That may have been an old one.
Oh, I bet it was.
That may have been.
You missed that meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were looking for you because he had a question for you. Sorry about that.
Rodney Jacket,
Tackett.
Jacket, I'm sorry.
Tackett.
Tackett, oh, okay.
We'll get it right. This is where I speak from right here.
Either one, yes, that's fine.
So my name's Rodney Tackett. I'm here to advocate for the recovering community here in Muncie.
Excuse me, you want the addresses?
No,
I thought you had to have them.
Yep.
no.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. My former position in the community was I was a drug dealer here for 30 years. And, you know, I'm very grateful for this jail and the system that's in place right now because they didn't arrest me, they actually rescued me from myself. And I've been able to find some resources here in Muncie to stay clean for over 3.5 years. And I'm here to advocate. I don't really know if I'm for or against the jail. I don't really know that. But what I do know is part of what I do in our community is I'm a member of Urban Light Community Church, and I do our transportation ministry, and I also do our recovery ministry. And some of the things I do is I transport addicts to detox and treatment, and then I walk it out with them, you know, as they try to stay clean. So one of the things that I would advocate for, if there is a new jail, whether it's in the jail or out of the jail, one of the things I noticed is they said that there's a room for programming, and they mentioned some 12-step programs. Well, I'm affiliated closely with one 12-step program, but I believe in 12-step programs. And to the best of my knowledge, at this time, we do not have 12-step programs in the jail. And at the time that I spent 21 months there, prior to going to prison, there was 12-step programs there, and there was a big major part of me being able to stay clean, even inside the jail. And I've spoke with jail commanders, jail leaders, and we try to advocate to get back in there because we see the good we did in our community. And one of the reasons they told us we're not in there is because we don't show a certificate or a progress report. We're an anonymous program, so what we offer is anonymous. We don't track those things, but the proof is in the pudding. You know what I'm saying? The recovering community 12-step programs is a very big asset in our community. So what I'm advocating for is for 12-step programs to be back in there. And they didn't mention anything about detox or treatment. Those things are things we're lacking in our community. We do not have a detox center here. We do not have a treatment center here.
Mr. Tackett, I believe you'll see those pie shapes. The beauty of this program, I couldn't, Eric, maybe you could tell us how many little pie shapes we're talking about, 15, 16?
There's 19.
19. Each of those, that'll be where the what do you call it, the classification will be held. And that's where the training will be. Because we're not going to let someone get out that's not ready to get out. So
Well,
we'll
those
bring the
areas-
training to you.
I think
then.
those would be like dorm type areas,
Right.
to where a lot of the programming, instead of locking them down in cells, it'll be like a dormitory area,
Okay.
where if for the rehab portion, they're not actually locked down into a cell. They're out in a dormitory area to where they can move
Right.
about everything for.
All right, and I'm not going to pretend to know statistics and numbers because
Right.
that's not me. I work on the front lines of addiction here in Muncie. So what I do know is when I transport people, when I bring them back, and when they come back here and they're clean, what we lack here, I'm very grateful for the Muncie Mission. They served a purpose. I was released from prison to there. They was a great program for me at the time, but they're not a recovery program,
Right.
short-term, they're a long-term recovery program. A lot of people want to get back to their families. We need 30, 60-day transitional housing.
Right.
And my view is if we can spend this amount of money on a facility, and I do know some inner workings. My mother-in-law worked at this courthouse for plus 35 years. My wife was here for 17, so I know some inner workings of it and the money that's involved in things. But what I would like to see is a transitional home that would give, you know, men. We have a very good program at Urban Light called the Urban Lighthouse for Women. And I can testify that they're producing productive members of society right now. And what we need is a transitional home for men. If we can spend this amount of money on a jail to house the low-level felons that are addicts, you know, that are committing crimes to support their habit, not high-level felons. If we can do that, man, can we throw a couple $100,000 on a men's transitional home to give people a chance to start becoming productive members of society? That's all I got.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Dan Ridenour.
Hello, thank you. Dan Ridenour. I live at 207 North Winthrop here in Muncie. Also a city council member. I am speaking on my own behalf here today. I just have a couple of concerns. I understand that the facility we have now, we have some major concerns, and something has to be done. So I'm not opposed to a new jail. My concerns are a couple. Number one, we have 14 bus routes in the city, and I've met with MITS, and I'm concerned about, and only one of those 14 routes goes to where this facility is. And I'm concerned about moving some of these other departments down there, what that means for the transportation of our citizens who need those buses to get here. All 14 routes come within a couple of blocks of this particular building and our current jail. So I think we need, as we're designing this and putting these final pieces together, and clearly there's been a lot of work done, as we're putting that together, we need to take that into account. We just have one bus route that hits that particular location. So every single person from the northwest side of town, northeast side of town, southeast side of town, they're going to have to come to downtown first, then grab that one bus that takes them down there in order for them to get there for their probation, in order for them to get there to attend a judicial process of some type. So I think that's something we need to take into account, and that's one of my concerns. The other concern is the economic impact of moving all these departments out of the downtown area. We have some really good results and some momentum with some of the businesses in the downtown area, and I'm concerned as a banker, as a citizen, as a council member, what that means to us economically for us to move all those other departments. So those are my two concerns, and I hope that they get looked at before this gets finalized. Thank you so much.
Next is Linda Hanson.
Good morning. Linda Hanson, 1400 West North Street, Muncie, Indiana. I'm spokesperson for the League of Women Voters of Muncie, Delaware County. The League asks that you delay action on the proposed lease between Delaware County Justice Partners and Delaware County regarding the jail and the Justice Center until after a public forum has been held to allow the public to hear and voice concerns and perspectives on the issue. The lease would be one more difficult to retrace step on a path that many have questioned. Our request is based on longstanding League positions on representative government. The League promotes an open governmental system that is representative, accountable, and responsive. In particular, the League of Women Voters believes that governmental bodies must protect the citizens' right to know by giving adequate notice of proposed actions, by holding open meetings, and by making public records accessible. An open process allows for citizen input and oversight in a timely manner. That would suggest open meetings, or at least one, should be held at an hour when many in the public could attend. And that's not 9 a.m. on Monday mornings. The Commission jail fact sheet, which I think is very good, but it's inadequate to address concerns that have been raised about the proposed move's impact on downtown, whether everything has been coordinated with the MITS routes, for example, whether there's been adequate concern about or attention to the proposed reduction in inmates by the time the proposed jail would be occupied, and whether there's been adequate attention to the substance abuse treatment and rehabilitation services, as you've already heard. Therefore, we urge you as a responsible government entity to delay action on the lease until public input can be considered following a public forum scheduled for December 4th. And we urge you to attend. If you want further information about that, it is online, but I will also give it to you. Thank you for your opportunity to speak, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Next is Ed Canancer.
Mr. Brooke, let me ask a question first. I would like to wait until UMBAL makes their presentation. We haven't heard anything about the financial end of it, and part of my response would be to their presentation. So I'd like to.
Well, this is the commissioners' forum. There's a public hearing, so make your comments.
Well, I would defer my comments until I hear the financial information from UMBAL. I'd like to be able to come back and have a response to that after he speaks.
That will be up to the commissioners to make that.
This is your time to speak, Ed, if you'd like to speak.
Sure. Ed Canancer. My official address is 2304 West Purdue Avenue, Muncie, Indiana. And I'm not here to speak in opposition or in favor of a new facility, but I'm here to speak in the reality of the experience of what everybody's going through. The four options that were presented really is just one option. And no other options were presented for other facilities or other types of opportunities. I don't know that Muncie and Delaware County needs a new jail. They need a jail annex to handle the overflow of inmates. That can easily be corrected starting next week. I mean, you have a shell building that's 200,000 square feet sitting on Fusion Road, and you could build a 1,000-pod jail annex, allocating 300 of those for Delaware County inmates, and then another 700 pods for out of town, so that the county could recoup money and actually generate money in housing out of county inmates, and to the tune of maybe $9 million in net income a year. I don't think those options have been looked at. I think the need for a facility has overshadowed the opportunity for something that is really effective, that can contribute to not only housing those inmates from Delaware County, but out of county, but could also provide drug rehab and maybe even some rehabilitation services, such as skilled trades. So I use the shell building as an example. Build out 100,000 square feet of the shell building, put the 1,000 cells there, do a 25,000 square foot area for rehabilitation and counseling, and do another 25,000 for the trades, to allow people to come in and learn a skill. To break the cycle of that life cycle, they have to have an opportunity and motivation to do something. If you have them incarcerated now, then they're already a good candidate to listen to counseling and to be able to attend that.
A few more seconds. I didn't start till after you made his comment, so.
Good.
How much time do I have left, John?
I've got 25 seconds.
Well, the cost of building a new facility, the $45 million figure that you've advertised in the paper, that's a legal notice that says that you're bound by the $45 million. You're going to be over budget before you ever start. You already spent, for acquisition, almost $3 million. You spent $1 million in design work, or you will spend, so there you're $4 million. You're $49 million, and you haven't even started. You've got a tremendous amount of change orders that will happen that is not accountable. Also, the operator administrative services. There's so many holes in your ordinance. I think you really need to step back and really look at this in a way that is more calculated than buying a pig in the poke. Because right now you're just buying a pig in the poke.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is Tom Malappet.
Tom Malappet, attorney at McKinney & Malappet. I'm a spokesperson for the Muncie Bar Association. One thing that we haven't really heard about is where the jail and needs are. We don't necessarily have those same needs for the courts. One of the things that I think is significantly overlooked in this whole process is how many areas, and I haven't heard any description of this, and I haven't had the benefit of seeing all the drawings, but how many rooms are made available for the attorneys to meet with clients? Right now, we have almost all of the attorneys in town meet with their clients before they go to court or after court to talk and debrief. Are there going to be 15 to 20 rooms available for attorneys to meet with those clients? You know, the other thing is not just the attorneys, but the businesses. I know you've heard lots of businesses are going to be affected, but you're moving a significant workforce out of the city. And moving that significant workforce out of the city is going to have a detrimental effect on all of the businesses downtown, which we've all enjoyed the recovery of downtown. And I know that's not something that you've heard, but I'd like to know what the significant studies have been by everybody, including Umball, as to what the economic impact is really going to be on downtown. Not what's it going to cost to build this, but what's the economic impact going to be downtown. Mr. Ridenour, I think he's right on point. I think there's going to be significant transportation problems. You know, one of the things that other communities do when they have a jail facility and a court in a different location is that they have video feeds. This would cut down on transportation costs. This would cut down on attorneys required to move some locations or have some presence out where this is located, where we're all located downtown right now. The comments by Mr. Knatzer, I appreciated those because one of the things I think this county probably needs is a work release facility. If we had a work release facility, that would free up some of the beds. It would allow this county, as what Mr. Knatzer said, to make money. There's only a few work release programs in our surrounding counties, and we could benefit financially from that instead of looking at spending $45 million. And I agree with Mr. Knatzer. I believe there's going to be a lot of change orders. I don't believe you're going to be stuck to $45 million. So I think that's an area that, on behalf of the Muncie Bar Association, I think this board needs to consider before moving forward. I mean, a lot of the documentation, we're being rushed here with this resolution to approve the entering into a lease. Well, as an attorney, I don't have my clients enter into a lease until I've fully reviewed the lease, until I know what's going to be in it. We're sitting here and the board, thank you, John, just 2 more seconds. This board is being asked to approve a lease that no one has seen. No one has had the ability to review to make sure that it's going to be financially fiscal for this county and this community. Thank you.
Elena or Alan?
It's Elena McKenzie.
McKenzie, there you go. It's Elena, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Hi, it's Elena McKenzie, 2612 West Palisades Parkway, here in Muncie. And as a resident, I am concerned because from what I read, my understanding again about the cost of this project and partial funding from edit funds. As a community member, I am really concerned that the Delaware County will be starved of funds for quite a long time for community projects that could improve our infrastructure. Like I live in a neighborhood where the playground equipment has been probably 30 years old and has no funds to be replaced. A lot of, there are no parks that are in the area where I live. There are no particular place for kids to be engaged in, and I have 2 kids who are 7 and 12. So as a resident again, it's a long-term effect of this project will be felt by residents like me and families like mine. I'm currently in the area where there was a sewer project failure, where residents currently paying over $100 bill for sewage costs because the contractor bailed after signing up lease contract, whatever it is. So I'm really concerned about signing a lease for another project that has, no details, that I don't see what are the details and what the final cost will be and how that's going to be paid for. So that's just my comments, mainly financial, and again, how that's going to be funded and what's going to be the long-term effect for the communities in Delaware County.
Thank you. Next is Leslie McCrory.
My name is Leslie McCrory. I am currently an associate pastor at Urban Light Community Church as well as the neighborhood leader for South Central Neighborhood. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here, and I appreciate your meeting with us over the time since the last meeting to be able to work out a good plan, and I appreciate the problem solving that has gone on. I know that we are here because we're trying to address an outdated and overcrowded jail, and while I agree that we definitely need updated facilities, I think that if you act right now in this way, that you're not taking into account the larger picture of what our community is telling you repeatedly that we want addressed. There is no mandate for us to build a double to triple sized jail. The mandate given by the Inspector Chance Sweat in August of last year was to develop, quote, a plan of action to become compliant with the Indiana jail standards. This would include alternatives to incarceration, reducing the inmate population, increasing bed space, or lastly, a plan to build a new jail or expand the present facility. There are 4 options presented there, and only one of those options has been explored. Our chief complaint today is that many options were presented, and it is unjust to simply build a bigger jail where we could house more people when we know that drugs and lack of bail money are causes of overcrowding in our current facility. Even if it were to save us money or make more money for the county, those benefits do not make this plan just. Justice looks to set things right, and building a double to triple sized jail, while it fixes the immediate problem of overcrowding, is like putting a cast on a bone that needs reset. It addresses the problem in a way that reinforces the brokenness. I just spent time with a neighbor who is in jail and has been in jail since August of this year. She is one of many who are in jail simply because they do not have bail money. She's not been given a public defender, and she is a case study in one reason why our jail is overcrowded. It's occupied by people who are considered safe enough to be out if they only had enough money or if our courts would work faster. Solving the problem of the poor waiting for trial is one way to reset the bone that would satisfy the mandate by reducing inmate population. But making room for more people in her situation in our jail is only reinforcing the brokenness. Furthermore, to promote healing in our community, we need to treat the drug problems we face. And I appreciate that something like that has been included, or the possibility for something like that has been given space in this plan. But this plan has no teeth in it in terms of voluntary rehabilitation. It means that it leaves incarceration rather than alternatives to incarceration, as were mentioned in the mandate, as our primary way to address our county's drug problem. What I would like to see is delayed action on this massive new jail. Doing so will enable us to align our justice center with true justice in terms of our neighbors who cannot post bail, our neighbors who need access to drug treatment, the work of those invested in the city center over these many years, and accessibility for those who rely on public transportation to get to and from the courts. If you approve this now, the problem will be addressed, but it will be addressed in a way that costs our community for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Scott Alexander.
John, if you want to move me towards the end and go on with the list, I'm happy to do that.
We didn't do it for Mr. Canancer.
No.
Okay.
I'll just be real brief. I'll ask you guys to not go ahead. I mean, that's basically what's on the table. Not approve this at this time. But Scott Alexander, County Council.
Actually, what's on the table is just a first reading.
Okay.
It's not a consideration. It's not a final consideration. It's just a first reading.
Well, and that's so far been a lot of our position on County Council is we feel like we're as uninformed as some of the people from the public feel on this too. We got this late last week, and I would ask you to hold off. I think there's some issues moving forward with the lease that we need to discuss, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. I know you and I, we've all talked about, where I'm at on this. The cost of this, I feel, is prohibitive. Cost of operation is still something we're waiting on. At this point in the public hearing, we don't have any numbers as to what this is going to cost. So I'll leave it at that. I'll ask you to postpone this decision on this, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Next is William Winstead. I apologize. Oh, good. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Will Winstead. My address is 8201 West Cooley Street in Wilketown. I live about 2 minutes from this new proposed jail project. I'm speaking against the project today. My day job, I'm a staff chaplain and palliative care chaplain at Fall Hospital. I'm also the vice president of the Delaware County chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm here today as a concerned citizen. I've heard nothing in this plan that details any kind of rehabilitation program with meat to it. I've heard nothing about medication-assisted treatment, medication-assisted detox. I'm very concerned about these things. This jail is built to further a policy that disproportionately affects minorities and people living with disabilities or in poverty. I ask the commissioners to reevaluate what our community actually needs before moving forward with this project as written. I have a list of questions that I'd like to submit for the record.
Jason Donati.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have a lot of questions I'll submit after I speak, but it doesn't appear the questions are being answered. I'm disappointed to see the presentation today that lacked the financial information that a lot of us are living in the dark about. There's no transparency regarding this issue. I've requested multiple times for a public forum to be held in the evening when people aren't working, and that still hasn't happened. So there's a lot of concerns. This special meeting and public hearing was not posted on the website or on your calendar. It was in a small section in the paper submitted for a public notice. There's no public notice for the hearing outside, although there is one for the special meeting. I have concerns as far as the statutory requirements for public notice for a public hearing. It says, according to IC 36-1-10-13C, the proposed lease drawings, plans, specifications, and estimates for the structure or description and cost estimate of the transportation project or system are open to public inspection during the 10-day period and at the hearing. When I requested public information, I did receive information, but it's a draft of the lease and there's no financial information included. There's no financial information sitting here for the public to inspect. I have concerns about the $45 million that we're talking about. Is that principal? And does that include interest? It also says in the public notice that we could pay up to $3,685,000 a year for up to 25 years, which could be a total of over $92 million. So we don't have cost estimates on the utilities, staff increases, insurance, operation of this facility. Does the lease make sure that the operator and contractor have to have a performance bond in case they skip town if they are unable to complete the project? All these financial our questions are still lingering out there. What's the cost estimate of moving the sheriff's office, prosecutor's office, community corrections, probation, public defender's office, family support, clerk administration offices? Could you take that money, which will be millions, and dedicate it to inpatient treatment in a facility that is needed in East Central Indiana and that our community is asking for? What is the cost estimate for the housing pod addition of 258 beds? If this project goes forward and we're building a completely new justice center, what are we doing with the $63 million invested justice center that we currently have next door? I haven't heard a plan or an idea about what to use for that other than give it away for $1 and hope someone takes it. There's continuous questions on if we're using edit funding for this project. What is that taking away from our communities? It's already been mentioned, parks or other needs that edit funding goes towards. So you're talking $3,685,000 of edit funding that would typically go to other community projects and economic development initiatives. What is being hindered or eliminated or neglected in the next 25 years based on using that for spending? And I have to ask, if this were to actually go to a referendum, would it actually be accepted? Would we even be able to get a bond for this? And what are we using for backup? Is that, my time's up, sorry.
Your time's up. Next is Mike Jones.
Good morning, I'm Mike Jones. To note, the Indianapolis Democratic Mayor, Joe Hogsett, was recently recognized as a visionary. And he was recognized because of the $540 million that the council there approved for a new Justice Center complex. I think that is comparative to what the commissioners are doing here. When I was on council in 2014, if I recall correctly, the council spent about $1 million housing inmates out of county. That's a rate of $35 a day, and the legislature has bumped that up to $55 a day. So it's going to be more than that now. The commissioners and the council did receive letters from the state regarding corrective action to meet specifications the state has mandated, to the point of reducing the jail population. The commissioners, the prosecutors, the judges, the community corrections, Sheriff Dudley, all working together at great length, did at one point in time, after we spent nearly $1 million a year, did reduce it down to 0, I believe, at one point, but with the continuing drug problems and other related crimes, that's where we're at now. I think the discussions on the jail started well before 18 months ago. I remember having discussions one-on-one about the need even back in 2014. I think in the last 18 months, the commissioners have done a deeper dive. They've studied the site selections, and I think they formulated plans and held meetings. I believe they have received public input. Maybe not everybody hasn't been here in these forums, but they have had an opportunity, I believe. They've identified a contractor, identified how they're going to finance the project through edit. And I'm going to speak to something that's unsubstantiated. But as I understand pretty clearly, Mayor Tyler, when asked in a previous meeting about where he wanted the jail located, and I believe Commissioner King was in that meeting, stated anywhere but downtown. Now, I think he has since recounted that, but to support that, we've read in the news media recently where the city has suggested building housing and some apartments around the adjacent building, around the ASON building. And I would suggest certainly to the commissioners, please include sufficient facilities for the rehab and education of those offenders. And I appreciate the foresight of the commissioners for doing all that, and I do support the efforts of the commissioners. Thank you.
Next is Chris Hyatt.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Hyatt, 918 University. I don't have a whole lot more to add to what has already been spoken to. Many of the issues have already been addressed relevant to what I consider the lack of transparency relevant to what exactly we're getting into here. But when I look at it in a simple format, none of it really makes a whole lot of sense to me. What I understand are the driving factors here are jail overcrowding and maybe some deferred maintenance issues. And what we're looking at as a solution is a leveraging of upwards of $50 million worth of county money assets for an undetermined amount of time, which I can only assume the building would be capable of sustaining its existence for maybe 25 years or so, and a annual outlay of something north of $3 million a year. And when I see what we're currently involved with relevant to what I understand to be somewhere around $500,000 a year of outside expense, consider housing inmates outside the county, seems to me that you could double or triple or even quadruple that consideration and still come out money ahead. You take a $50 million obligation and you could be doubling it. You could sustain a consideration for 50 years. So it's almost like the county's got money that they just don't know what to do with yet. And maybe I can understand that because here a couple years ago, our illustrious city council rained a revenue source upon the county via the local option income tax. So I think it could be better spent. You could totally vacate this facility next door, housing inmates outside while you rehabilitate the existing thing and only bring a number of inmates back in that would be satisfactory to what you've designed there, and move forward with the existing facility. But that being said, I think I agree wholeheartedly with what's been said relevant to the fact that there's a whole lot more information that needs to be revealed, whether it's in another meeting here, maybe at a bigger facility to accommodate the crowd at a better hour, to allow the public to be involved. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Next is Rick Yenser.
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit, tell a little story about economic development, mass incarceration. You want added money used for an institutional building that should be purchased or spent on other means. I noticed in your jail proposal that you've got a company here that's only been in business for 6 months. They've created another company that's actually going to do this. A couple people come to mind. Troy Woodward, the former state lawmaker, got in a little bit of a problem with buying and selling property from his family for the '69 deal. And our friend here in York and Springport, Greg Martz, who's got a development company that leverages money out of Chicago for public projects in the Midwest. I'd like to know from local government how this is going to improve our economy here when you're getting money from the Chicago bank. You've got people from Indianapolis that are actually overseeing and building this project. And I disagree with Chris. I would remind the public that this is a lease. The government does not have the money right now to do this. They're asking wage earners for about $3.5 million over the next 25 years, which, as Jason said, is $90 million. That is a tremendous cost for nothing more than an institutional building that can easily be offset by, as just Chris mentioned, building onto that jail, renovating it, and using it for another 25 years. I don't think there's any economic gain to be had here. And another little story about mass incarceration. We had a professor from the University of New Orleans last summer come in and do a day in the life of the Delaware County Jail, and he found what many people have already said. Most of those people are in poverty. They're pretrial defendants. They can't even make bail, and they're in there and they're not even convicted. So quit arresting everybody, for one. Put some more treatment and options into getting people back to work. And again, as far as this problem we see, the downtown is going to collapse when the jail, I would remind you, across the street, you're going to see the future of the downtown. When Ivy Tech brings those buildings back online next year, the old Ball Corp and the new building, they're going to put 2,000 students downtown. And that's 10 times the 200 or 300 people in the criminal justice system. So again, I would look for a better way to use economic development money, because I'm still not sure you can subordinate this without using property tax money from all of us landowners.
Go Ivy Tech.
Next is Stephen Brand. Stephen Brand.
He's not
I can't see behind that.
He's not here.
He's not here, okay. All right. Renee Mays. Oh, there you are, Renee.
I know there's a giant thing
I can't see it.
happening. Hi, good morning. My name's Renee Mays. I am a proud Muncie resident as of last year. I come here today quite concerned and sharing many of the concerns that you all mentioned about this project. I think that there's an incredible lack of transparency in many of the details. It's great to have what you all have shared in terms of the plan. Money is always an issue, and I think our community in particular, we continue to ask for preventative work and early intervention, and instead we've got pods for people who might potentially get treatment. But what we know is that when people enter into the system, they don't get out. It's very hard to get out. So why would we arrest our way into a situation and create more beds, which they're going to fill? Why would we do that when we can work together as a community to make this community a better place for everyone to be engaged, to have jobs? We need jobs. People aren't entering into people aren't waking up every day saying, please arrest me so I can get treatment in a facility. They're not doing that. They want to provide for their families. They need mental health treatment. We need those things. And it seems like those needs are being funneled into a project which is only harming our community more than helping it. I think everyone has brought up real concerns that, quite frankly, this isn't going to address it. It's just going to get us into a deeper hole. So perhaps a bigger question. So right now we're sitting in a situation in which we're overcrowded. What happens when that's overcrowded? What are we doing next? Is that really is that the path that we want to go down? In creating a community that the only way that we address our issues is to build a bigger facility which we cannot afford, arrest people and throw them in there? I don't know that that's the community I want to be a part of. I believe in Muncie and Delaware County far too much for that. That's all I got.
Next is Leslie Draper.
Good morning, I'm Leslie Draper.
Oh, there you are, okay.
I don't have a lot to share that I have not already shared in writing and email, but for the sake of the public hearing and being here, I want to share my major concerns. I want to affirm that yes, of course, our current jail needs attention, and I do think that jail conditions are important for our inmates. However, as Leslie stated, the citations from SWET did not require this level of expansion. And so my number one concern is expansion. We're doubling incarceration rates. As Renee said, we will fill it. Our nation is trending in raising our incarceration rates far above other free democratic nations. And while it seems a little overdramatic to bring that up here in a little courtroom in a corner of Muncie, Indiana, that's where trends happen, is in decisions like these. So number one, I would ask that we do not expand mass incarceration in our city so that we don't have that blight. My number two concern is the financial ethics of Troy Woodruff. We have some past records of him having ethically questionable, we'll call it that, financial dealings. And Muncie has enough ethically questionable things on the table. I don't think we need to add more. And then finally, as an educator, I'm concerned about this being in a school and how that impacts the psyche of a generation. I know the kids that are going to get locked up in this facility. I know them because they went to Wilson and I worked with them then. So I would ask that you consider what that does for a kid to go to a school and to later end up locked up in that same school, and what that does to a generation to say that we believe that incarceration is worth more financial investment than education in our city. Thank you.
Next is Amanda Alcott Hare.
Hi, my name is Amanda. First of all, thank you all for giving us all the opportunity to speak here. I work here in downtown. I'm a fairly new Muncie transplant from the DC area. First of all, my major concern is the economic impact of what this is going to do to downtown, what economic impact this is going to have in this new location. I don't see any positive benefits to doing this. I don't see any examples of other areas where this has been an economic benefit. I would love to hear some examples of that, if that has been researched even at all. The second issue is that in this area, there aren't any rehab facilities. There isn't anything to help these people that have been through generational poverty. There's been a decline in population of this county and a decline in the economic status of this county for a generation at least. We need to do something to change that. And so if we're going to be taking money, and we're going to be asking taxpayers for money, we need to create jobs, and we need to impact the drug use and the crime in this area in a more beneficial way that helps everybody. Thank you so much.
Jeff Catron.
That's me. I think everybody's touched on everything more than once on what I was going to touch on. I can just follow up with submitting a couple things in writing.
Okay, that's fine. All right. That's your right. That's all the people I had sign up. I don't think there were any other sign up on the sheets.
I know there was some questions about change orders. We do have the attorney here from the bonding. Ms. Beasley, could you step up and explain to him about the change orders with this lease?
Yes, Sue Beasley with Bingham Greenbaum Dahl. The process that we are using in this transaction is called the Build, Operate, Transfer statute. The commissioners chose to do that. One of the reasons they chose to do that was specifically because of change orders. Once this transaction is finally negotiated and the lease is entered into, we have what is referred to as a guaranteed price. That means no change orders. We have agreed on what will be in the facility and how much that will cost. Once that document is signed, then there are to be no change orders unless the county decides they want to add something to it as they go through the process and they decide they want to make a change or add something additional to what has been agreed upon at the time of the signing of the lease. That's simplified.
And we also have Matt from Humboldt. Matt, can you give some of the numbers and
Sure.
sort of explain?
Excuse me. My name is Matt Eckerly. I'm with out of Indianapolis, and we have been retained by the county to serve as the county's municipal advisor on this project, in particular the financing and figuring out how it can be paid for. The $45 million number that's been cited was arrived at looking at the outstanding obligations of the county that's payable from the local income tax, economic development, and wrapping in what could the county support while still meeting those obligations, and then also providing additional funding for the ongoing projects that the county has been able to fund from that revenue source throughout the years. Another directive from the county was to look at this and make sure that it's operating within the current rate, that there would not be a need to raise any income taxes or property taxes on the taxpayers of Delaware County. So what we've been doing is working with the county to develop a financial plan that provides that ongoing flexibility and funds the needs as determined by the county officials and as developed by the folks at RQAW. I know they're still in the process of fine-tuning the costs, but that $45 million bogey remains as our maximum, and the cited $3.6 million is a preliminary maximum number. There's no guarantee that that will actually be the amount of the annual payments. The annual payments could actually come out less depending on the final size of the project, the interest rates at the time of the financing closing, all of those elements. But we have been taking into account, through working closely with Mr. Brooke and members of the county commissioners, the ongoing obligations that the county has. I know I've already emphasized that once, but it is very important that they be able to continue to fund the types of projects that they've historically been able to fund out of that revenue source, service the existing debt that is on the books to not put that in jeopardy, service debt on a new facility, and then be able to fund additional projects that might arise down the line. I know traditionally the county has taken a role in a variety of communities around the county to assist with community development projects, and it was a priority of theirs to be able to maintain that flexibility. That cushion also does provide some comfort that revenue fluctuations won't result in a need to look at other revenue sources to actually levy or dip into other revenue sources to fund any gaps that might exist down the line. I don't know if that answers everything that you were looking for me to cover.
Any comments from the commissioner?
Well, I know we've talked about, everyone has expressed concerns about drug treatment centers, and that is also a concern of ours. We've been working on several different potential programs that we can use for drug treatment centers, rehabilitation centers. And you know, it keeps, we have a lot of people in here from the city, and we need to keep in mind, this isn't just a Delaware County drug problem. This is a city of Muncie drug problem also. And I think that's something that's important, and you know, it's something maybe we need to speak with the city about, and partnering with the city when we come up with a good treatment center. Yeah.
And I have to agree with Shannon Henry. This just isn't a commissioner's problem. This is the city and Delaware County's problem with the drug treatment. Something that a lot of people have to look at, the jail is actually put on the backs of the commissioners. Now, if you go over there and actually do a study, we probably house more inmates for the city of Muncie than what we do for the county or the small towns. But the city does not pay any money into this. Now, I've heard a lot of people get up here, and we've talked about drug rehab. The commissioners, we set aside money out of the edit plan to help with drug rehab. And we've had some people that's stepped up here and they've spoke, and they have ties within the city of Muncie, where I have never seen them at a city council meeting bring up anything about drug rehab. I've never seen any of them go to a Muncie Redevelopment Commission meeting and bring up anything about rehab, because the city has money funding just like the county does. So like I said, it's just not a problem. So I would say you probably want to get with your city officials also and say, you know, the commissioners are willing to work with you on a drug rehabilitation center. So, you know, let's get together and do something together. You know, there's money, and one lady said that, you know, we do have a black eye right now with the city of Muncie and what's going on with the city of Muncie. None of us, we have no investigations going on with any of us sitting here. We are trying to do what's right. We didn't leverage like Mr. Hyatt said, the tax a few years ago on the citizens of Muncie. That's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to do something in a way that will not put us into another federal lawsuit, and also not raise taxes on the citizens of Muncie. That's our main thing. We do not want to raise taxes on the city of Muncie. What a lot of people don't understand, that in July there was a law that was passed where we could leverage a 2% tax on the citizens. That's just for correctional facilities. And we said we're not going to do that. We're going to do something to where we do not raise taxes. And we do want to help with rehabilitation. But I suggest not only show up to our meetings to talk about rehabilitation, but you also need to go to the city council meetings. Go to the Muncie Redevelopment Commission. They have TIF dollars there that can help you with inside the city of Muncie. You know, there's different things that they can help you with, but just don't try to put it on the backs of the commissioners. That's the only thing we're asking you guys to do. We're just doing what we really need to do. And yes, we are going to work with rehabilitation within this center. I've met with Mrs. Draper and her husband several times and plan on meeting with them again to discuss this. And I have to agree with Mr. Tackett. We do have something for females for rehabilitation. We need to look into something to help the males with rehabilitation. You know, it's both male and female. You know, and drug, I want to explain that drugs have no color. They have no religion. They have none of this. Drugs takes everybody. And we do need to do something for our community. So I do agree with you, Mr. Tackett. And Mrs. Draper, I am going to be getting a hold of your husband. I emailed him. I've had a few problems, but we are going to sit down and we're going to work this out together as a community. I asked Mr. Ridenour, maybe he will take the step on the city council, and he will bring up about drug rehabilitation within the city council. He will take it to the mayor, but this just isn't a county thing. I want everybody to understand this. This is a city thing. And if you have ties within the city, go to your people, explain to them. Just don't put it on our backs. It's everybody's problem, just not ours. And I want to thank
Ms. Mays and Ms. Carr both spoke about jobs. There's jobs here in Muncie, Indiana.
a lot of jobs.
We have companies all the time that are complaining because they can't get people to work. And again, we go back to the drug issue. It's people that can't pass the drug screens is a big problem. So, and we work with, we're working with Mr. Jones and the Veterans Administration, with not only vets, but Mr. Jones and his group go to drug court, and they do try to provide relief for some of those people suffering from the addiction. So there's a lot of things that come up here today that people spoke about that is currently happening that maybe you just don't know about because you don't attend all the meetings.
Yeah, and one thing, it was brought up to build a 1,000-bed jail, and we have listened to the public. It's not what the public wants. They don't want a 1,000-bed jail. They want us to help people, and that's what we're going to try to do. And I know it was brought up about the $63 million to build what we have across the street. Nobody brought up and nobody talked about the attorney fees that it costs. Probably a quarter of that money came for attorney fees for that jail project over there. So it wasn't actually a whole $63 million to build it. You have to add in the attorney fees. If we go through another federal court lawsuit, add those attorney fees in, which could be between $15 and $20 million that we're paying attorneys. Nobody's ever discussed that, but there's a lot more that people have to understand about this project and the project that we have across the street that cost the taxpayers more money than what it actually should have if the commissioners at that point in time would have looked and saved the taxpayers money. Because like I said, a lot of that money was spent on attorney fees. So if I don't have anything else to say,
Yeah, I'd like
Sherry.
to say something. I heard a lot of really good things, and I agree, 9 o'clock on a Monday is not a good time for a public hearing, or whatever you want to call them. I guess we did publicize it out on that bulletin board, which I don't agree. I think it should be put on at least the elevator and bigger print.
It was.
When we do these postings. But to Mr. Tacker, I agree. We do need a halfway house, and this is something that we've been talking about doing what they call a RFP, request for proposal, on what we do with the old building, because it's not designed now for very efficient housing of prisoners who have not been through any kind of treatment. But it could be converted to some kind of a halfway house. There's a lot of possibilities, and we have a lot of creative people, especially with this body of people that are here, and then also with Ball State sitting out west. So we could use that to something else. And that's one possibility. And then on the rehab programs, there's just a lot of good programs out there. And one that I'd like for you to write down, if you'd like to, is called the Delancey program out in California. And it's a program that's been around. And the beauty of this program is they work with the real hardcore druggies. And they're given housing, they're given a job, they're given supervision. And the thing about that program is that, let's say if you go in as an 8th grader reader, you are then given the responsibility to help maybe a 5th grade reader learn how to read. And we know how important reading is. And then if you're the 5th grade reader, you're given a job of training a person who can't read. And with our community around here, you can't tell me that we couldn't start a program like this in Delaware County and put us on the map as one of the first places that is going to do this unique program that's been around for 40 years. And it's just, the possibilities are there, folks, but we have to come together as a community like we did today. And you're right on the transportation. MITS only has one bus. How many have never ridden a Muncie MITS bus? Let's see a show of hands. You've never ridden a MITS bus. The ones who have never ridden, come on. Everybody's ridden the MITS. Well, pretty good bus system, isn't it? So in 10 minutes, they can be out to the new place if that goes forward. I've often wondered why they don't have one going up and down McGallier, because, you know, the people that live on the south side, they have to come downtown and they have to go out west or east. But anyway, we have good transportation, so. And then on the jobs, did you realize that we have 3,000 open jobs today that we cannot fill? So that is why we need this rehab. And I'm going to move today that we table this so county council and some of us can sit down and talk some more.
Actually,
We'll close it.
this is still a public hearing.
We'll close it, but in the special meeting. So I move we close this meeting then.
Well, before you do that, there was someone asked at the last minute to speak. Monica James has signed up the sign-in sheet to speak.
I want everybody to have their opportunity.
Hi, I'm the chair of the Indiana Green Party. My name is Monica James. I live at 3409 North Allison Road. And I'm here to speak about several things that was probably missed. And I'll tell you right now, I'm actually for a new jail, just not in that location. Okay, the reason why I'm for a new jail is because I know my husband works there, and there are times when the employees are put in danger because of certain issues that they brought up. Is where wiring and things are at, and they can lock down prisoners, but the prisoners can also hog the jail cells. These are things I know because I'm concerned about this thing. And so, one of the things I want to bring up that we did miss, we missed mental health issues. Everybody's talking about drugs, but there is a lot of people in the city of Muncie that goes to Delaware County Jail, not because they're really criminals, but because they are mentally ill. And that is way more important because that is our highest crime rate today. And those are the first persons we see killed on the street, are mentally ill people because they can't follow directions. They don't quite understand what the directions are saying. Some of them are just confused. You don't know who's in early stage dementia and who isn't. We just know that people are dying. And it's horrible because it's affecting police officers. It's affecting their lives, their family lives, and everybody's in jeopardy now. Secondly, I want to discuss the black community population, especially the 5 Point area. And I'm going to keep drilling the 5 Point area because it's one of the areas in the city of Muncie that has not been reached out to. It's one of the areas that has probably the highest crime rate, the poorest community, and a lack of transportation and unemployment. And I don't even know if their drug rate is that high, but I do know you have 3 generations living in one household off of grandma's income, which is only about $600 or $800 a month. And I feel like if I'm a single person reaching out, begging my friends, begging this community to help grandma with a $25 gift card for her family at this time of the year, just to ease a little bit, not even a small amount, but just a little bit of her burden, that we as a community, as the county, as the city, as the state should be doing better. And so on behalf of this jail, I'm going to say, I don't agree with the location. It's going to hurt jobs that's already in effect. I don't agree with the location. It's going to hurt people that can't get there. I don't agree with the location because it costs too much money. I don't agree with it because we are not addressing mental health issues. And so that's why I'm coming to you. And I agree, it should be a city problem. It should be a community problem. We should be speaking at each other. Anybody that says this is something we want and we're not fixing it, it's all of our fault. And that's what I had to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, if that's it.
That's it,
I'll take a
yes.
motion to-
There's a motion made by Commissioner Reagan to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, we have a second by.
Oh, please, okay. I didn't hear it, sorry.
Steve, can you call the roll?
Mr. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes. Next, I'd like to open up the special meeting. It's, yeah, Monday, November 26, 2018. Now the time is 10:26.
I'd like to move that we table the special meeting.
Move to table the special meeting, or you move to table the consideration of the ordinance?
Yes.
Move to table the consideration of the ordinance?
Yes.
The purpose of the special meeting was identified as to consider a proposed lease between Delaware County Justice Partners and Delaware County regarding a jail and justice center, and to consider an amendment to the fourth revised economic development. I don't have the economic development plan finished yet, but it's considered this ordinance, which is ordinance 2018-020. This would be just the first reading of the ordinance. So that's what's on the agenda. Commissioner Reagan has moved to table.
By 1 second. I guess it died.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2018-020.
I'll
Second.
second it. Steve, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
No.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Since this is just an introduction, this is not final action on the ordinance. The ordinance can be considered at a subsequent meeting, but it is not a final action on this ordinance. So there can be amendments, changes, whatever you want to this particular ordinance.
Entertain a motion to close the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Steve, can you call the roll?
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.